Hey Nancy, I am, after a long time, getting into making socks on my sock knitting machine. Just trying to figure out the best camera angle. Hey Charles, since it's been a while and yeah, clearly the camera stand is not being very helpful, but let me see if I can make it work. It's gonna be loud, so I don't know if the sound of a machine will be extremely annoying to you people, or would you rather hear my annoying sound? So we'll see. Okay, so it's just some waste acrylic yarn that. Hi Kyle. Its name is Kyle. Yes, it is. Uh, oh, hi Leslie. Yes, your machine is still sitting here, so you're welcome to come and grab it whenever you can. You hear round, round, and round. I think this is probably around 6 months or so since I sat on the machine again. So, for others who don't know, probably many people don't know if people don't remember what I say on social media, I guess. But this machine was actually uh, belonged to Kyle, and he saw my request to want to play with a sock knitting machine, and he had other intentions. It's not treadle controlled. It's a hand crank. So anyway, he gave me his machine to test out, but his intention was, let's sell this thing to Charan. And I just dropped stitches, which happens, and that's the reason why you do a scrap yarn in the beginning when you haven't been in touch for a while. Makes sense, right? So I'm just gonna do that and go back to my scrap yarn again. So let's go there. I have seen some that people have rigged them up with bicycle pedals and stuff and made them bicycle friendly, which I think is pretty neat. Uh, so let's see. Hopefully. I know you can see this big hole out there. Don't worry, it's fine. Um, this is all just junk mail. I mean, junk yarn, so kind of like junk mail. Uh, oh, you bought it with the money your dad left you? Oh, that's sweet. Well, I'm glad that I connected with you and landed up becoming the owner of this machine. I really enjoy it. Why I hate acrylic yarn is because of this reason. It's the static. Oh, that's sweet, Kyle. Yes, making, you know, memories live on one way or the other. So let's try this again. So this is a nylon thread that I'm passing along. I had not made sure that it was behind the needles. That's the reason why my stitches fell off. But we are good this time. So there I finished my one round of, so that's going to be my ravel cord, which I'll be pulling off when I want to remove my sock. And now I'm going to put in some waste yarn, which will actually be sent in along with the sock tube, so that, you know, people can unravel from the waste yarn and knit up their toes and cuffs or whatever. So I'll just do like 10 rows of that. And also what I wanted to check was my settings for the stitch size. Let's just go to size 0, and I think for this yarn I think 4.75 might be the right. So that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4.5. Let's try 4.75. Okay, so that's enough of rounds for the waste yarn, and I also would like to move my weights up. Yeah, acrylic yarn is just, the static is just insane. That's true. Hey Exotic Kitty, haven't seen you in a long time, and you probably haven't seen me on my sock knitting machine before, because I don't think during this pandemic I probably did use it, but I just didn't, you know, I don't think I went live if I ever did. So the reason I know is because I was having a hard time figuring out the camera angles and all of that, which I still don't know if I got it. So that is enough with the waste yarn. Now you're going to move on to the actual sock yarn. This is a trekking yarn, probably purchased, well actually Kyle, I think this was purchased at Maker's Mercantile. I think I saw, yep, I'm right. Where is it? There it is. It was purchased at Maker's for $16.95. Not to point out anything, it's a yarn company or whatever. There was a knot in this yarn, so that's why I did it into two separate cones. I know one knot is acceptable, so I'm just going to try doing a Russian join on this. It'll be totally invisible in the sock, so it won't really matter. But I don't want the knot in it while I am cranking. Oh, you just finished Thanksgiving dinner. Oh, you must be in Canada, right? I know Canadian Thanksgiving is this weekend or on Monday or something. I read something about it recently. So, alright, so we are engaged with our actual sock yarn now. And we crank. And I will know if my tension is off, if my stitches are rising up from the needles. And this looks good. Yeah, I really like the color. It's a nice green color and it is transitioning nicely from one shade to the next, so that's really cool. So one thing I have to make sure is not get carried away and keep moving my weights up, because once the weights are not um, you know on the yarn, the stitches will just fall off the needles and have to start all over again. Bye, Nancy. Hey, Wendy. Yes, you should mail me your sock yarn. And especially if you haven't got around to do holiday knitting yet, then getting tubes is easy, and then you can just knit in your heel, toes, and cuffs, and you're done. How long does it take to make a pair? I'm not very proficient in it. Like, if I just have to crank the whole thing just as a tube, it's pretty quick. It takes more time for me to wind the yarn onto cones than to actually crank the sock tube. Interesting, right? Because I haven't found a good cone winding machine, and you need yarn on cones for sock knitting. If I have to actually make a full sock with heels and everything, I can do all of that with the ribbing, toes, and all of that on the machine. It takes me around half an hour to 45 minutes to make an entire one sock. So an hour or so, hour 15 minutes to make a pair. There are people who can do it in half an hour. I just don't have that much experience doing it. So the more I do it, I know I'll get faster at it, but you know, and I really like the transitions of this. So many people do find it convenient just to make tubes on this, and then you can kind of adjust, because it takes a lot of practice to know exactly where to put a heel and toe and cuff for your particular shoe size. And I experimented and took a lot of notes and did a lot of gauges and stuff to figure out the right fitting sock for me. And I think I made around 13 to 14 socks for myself to figure out what works well. But every time the yarn changes, things change. So I finally have figured out what works best for me. But for doing it for someone else, making an entire sock, this is a little bit of a challenge. But I can get a very nice custom fitting sock for myself. Alright, see you later. saw the stitches riding slightly up, it's because my weight has almost touched the floor. That's the reason why you have to kind of keep a watchful eye and not just go at full speed. But I caught it in the nick of time, or else we would have had a little bit of a disaster. Okay, I'm getting to the end of that cone and I want to start the next one right after this. This is both the same yarn, so I'll have to do a Russian join here. Let's see. I think I can do. Let's just clip it here. Okay, and the way you do that is you actually create a loop out here and pass your yarn through. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead a few stitches so that end is caught up and my loop doesn't, get unraveled. And in the meantime, I don't need that piece of yarn. I'm going to take my new yarn cake. I'm trying to recollect all of this from, a few months back. So I'm going to double that up this way, and hopefully, so there'll be the small section where the yarn is doubled. So I just go a little slow there, and that should take care of that. Making sure my stitches are falling off. There we go. Join was done. You will not know where it was in the sock. I will still mark it since this is for a customer. I think it's important for them to know where a joint was put in the sock in case they absolutely don't want it. So if you do send me sock yarn and there is a I'm just making a tube right now, Donna, because this is an order for a customer who sent me 4 skeins of sock yarn and they wanted tubes knit out of it, and they will knit the heels and toes and cuffs themselves. So that's what I was saying. I'll need to let them know that that is where there was a knot in their yarn. So if you send me yarn and there is a knot in it, this is the way I'm going to knit it up. You can still have the full tube. Or if you insist that, hey, no, just leave it separately, you can let me know that. But I think it's better to just have a whole tube and then you can figure out what you want to do. You want to unravel the whole thing, you can. And I kind of wanted to get warmed up on the machine so that I can actually knit a sock. It's been a while. Yeah, there is no gussets or heel or anything being done right now. I'm getting warmed up using the machine again. It's been a while, so I have all these tubes to knit up, and right after that, after maybe next week or so, I'll probably knit up some socks, like full socks with ribbing and all of that. So just warming up today. And usually we all know that from one skein of sock yarn, you usually get a pair and a little bit left over. But if you make the whole thing into a tube like this and use contrasting color, toe, heel, and cuff, you can get two pairs of socks from one tube. At least for a size 7.5, 8 shoe size. Uh, like I can get two pairs out of one skein of yarn. I just use a contrasting color. Since the entire tube is just already knit up, why unravel and do that? Oh, the row counter is my rigged up thing. It actually belonged to my flat gauge knitting machine, my flat bed knitting machine, and I just basically have clamped it out on the side, and I've had added a lever on. Let me see if I can get it in view. You can see that brass thing poking out here. I've attached that to my yarn guide, which goes and trips that every time I go around. Getting a good counter is a little tricky, so this is what I use. I usually try for a spare and a pair from a skein. Yeah. They lost in them. Yeah, it's one way to do it. So, and I like contrasting colors. You can make it stretch longer, and then if you want to replace, it's easy to replace a toe or a heel if it's a contrasting color as well. Lots of advantages to that. One more round and then my yarn will get over, so I'm gonna stop here. I like to stop at the starting point. Yeah, I like Regia yarn a lot for its long lasting quality, like 75-25 wool nylon blends. And I like merino, the superwash merino nylon blends as well, but those socks really don't last me very long. Um, Not as long as, like a regular Regia kind of yarn or the trekking or one of those. So that's the reason why I like to knit my socks and my toes and heels and all the wearing out parts in one of those yarns. So I have a lot of solid colored Regias and stuff which I keep using for those purposes. Yeah, you have a row counter from 320. Yeah, that's what this is. This is a Studio 320s, not 320s. That one was kind of attached to my machine. This was like another very old machine, which I think I got it for like $10 from Goodwill. It was missing needles and all of that, but I just use it for parts. Like I've used its yarn guide for my flatbed machine. I'm using the counter out here, so $10 wasn't bad. Yeah, Regia Opal trekking, those are nice, good durability socks. But I like the colors and the self-striping stuff of, some of the merino socks. So you can have best of both worlds. So now I'm adding my waste yarn, and I'm going to add a row of, I'm going to add like 10 rows or so of this. And my weight has almost reached the bottom, so I need to move that up as well. So this is a very long tube. This can easily make 2 pairs of socks. But when you hand knit, you kind of get bored of making like 1 pair from one ball of yarn, and then the rest is not enough to make a whole pair, so you just let it go. Yes, I think it's a SK301. You're right, Leslie. You know your machines well, that's for sure. So that's the waste yarn which ends this particular sock, and I'm going to start the next sock after this. But before that, I need to add a row of ravel cord so I can separate the 2 socks when I'm ready. And the other thing I do is I mark, I take the label of the yarn. Since this is a customer's sock yarn, I label it, I just clip it onto the sock so I know this is their yarn. It has their name, the number of stitches they wanted, and all of that on it. So this is a nylon cord that I use as a ravel cord. So I just do 1 row of that. Make sure it's behind the needle so they get stitched up and don't fall off. That's 1 row. And now we begin the next sock, but again I'll do another few rows of my waste yarn, because this waste yarn will go with the next sock. So we are up to here. Yeah, see, you can use the counters interchangeably for anything. This one I kind of like totally messed up this way it clips onto that machine, because that machine was a complete waste for me. It was like in real bad condition. I just got it for the counter and yarn guides and stuff. So moving on to the next yarn. This one is also one of hers, and it's a very colorful yarn company. Very colorful yarnings, that's what it is. And the colorway is University of Washington, UW. So those are the UW colors, the purple, gold, and the white. So that's what's going next. So I'm just going to pass that along, go in there. And again, for this yarn too, I think this tension should be fine. I don't go above 4.75 anyway, but I might have to go to 4.5 because this is a merino blend, I think. Yep, 75 merino, 25 nylon. And I do have a cheat sheet out here of what settings I've used for that particular yarn previously. And I think, yeah, 4.5 should work best. Maybe I should move it to 4.5 because I've dealt with this yarn before. This will be some nice self-striping colors, that's for sure. Okay, I'm going to try just a smidge increasing the tension. That's good. The colors on the screen are appearing very blue, but it's actually the true purple of University of Washington. So the colors on the what my camera picks up and its autocorrect white balance is just so messed up. But we can still enjoy all the colors changing. You can see how quickly the yarn feeds off from the cone, which is, out here. That's the reason why it needs to be wound out just perfectly. Otherwise, there can be trouble. And I'm not saying there won't be any trouble now, but it's very picky on how well your yarn is wound. And that's why it takes me more time to wind this than, actually knit a tube. Yeah, I know the camera is showing blue, but it's not blue. Believe me, it's purple. Okay, let me see. Let me see if I can configure the video and get the colors right. It's the color balance which is always messed up on my camera, so I am sorry for that. Let's see if we can fix that. Let me see. Oh, that's making it more blue. That's the white balance is off. I know that. No, that's not. No. 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 Jeez, how do I make it go purple? No, see, it's just not turning into that purple color. No. No, the color is off. I can tell it's off. And I cannot seem to fix it. Just believe me, it's purple. Yeah, the blues, and this is not even blue. This is a true purple. It's the, well, go Google University of Washington. You'll know the color I'm talking about. It's looking so blue in the picture. It's a purple. Yeah. Stitches rising, need to check. Yep, the weight is almost touching down. It's a Time Lord thing. So I wanted to give you a view of the previous green sock that we did. It's a long sock. And now I don't like to move it too much because, the machine is well oiled, and the more I move the sock, I don't want it to have chances of hitting any of the oil on the machine. I just want it to go straight down, and especially this next yarn is white. And even if oil does get on it, I have noticed it does clean up really well. If there is some excess oil, I'll just wipe that. because I do oil. You have to keep these machines oiled very well. This is an antique from early 1900s, 1800s. I don't know. I've forgotten the date of this machine. Notice the cone. There is always this particular stage at which I like the way the cone is unwinding, like you get these solid bands of colors and you can see the colors changing on the cone. Very relaxing to watch. See, jumped again. That's because my weight has reached the bottom. Can you see? No, you cannot see. I'll I'll see if I can show it to you all later on, but the self-striping colors on this are beautiful. Need to move it up again. Self-striping yarns are fun. So the next colorway, I have a Halloween colorway coming up. And since it is October, might as well, right? So after this one is over, I'll start up with a Halloween colorway. Moving the weight up again. Can you see the sock? I'm gonna be careful that I don't move it. Look at the colors and the striping. Oh, it's just beautiful. And the blue color is actually purple. So just imagine that. And self-striping yarns are more expensive because they're more time consuming to dye this way. So even I have some self-striping yarn. I hand knit a lot of my socks too, but I prefer this way to do them as a tube because then, like I said, I can get two pairs out of one skein of self-striping sock yarn if I use contrasting colors, and that way you get twice your money's worth. So actually it's better. And I'm not advertising myself dyeing self-striping sock yarn. I have tried doing it. It is extremely time consuming. You need to have a method for doing it. I don't. So that's why I don't see myself doing it. But look for people. There is White Birch who does this. Of course, there is, very colorful yarnings. Whose yarn this one is. Very well dyed. So yeah. All that fiber fluff. Okay, need to move the weight again. And we are also coming to the end of this yarn. This feels like it was a much longer tube. There. Don't want to take a chance going all the way to the other end. And some nice sharp snips. Artistic yarn by Abby. Oh, I have to look at that too. There are so many of them, and it's like I love mustache yarns. Mustache does amazing sock yarn as well. And then of course there is White Birch. I have actually 4 skeins of White Birch to do for Natalie. So that's going to happen also next. So this guy is going to get attached to my UW socks. And next, should we go Halloween? Next. Let's see what the colorway is called. And this one has glitter on it. Can you see the gold sparkle on it? So this is Gnome Acres. It's gnome made and nerd flavored. So that's a yarn. And the colorway is called Smell My Feet. Isn't that funny? It looks like Halloween colors, so that'll go next. But before that, we need to end this, which means we need to pass our waste yarn. So few rows of waste yarn, and then $2 of waste yarn gone in. Better snips. I got these. They were such a good deal. I couldn't resist, but that's what you get. You sometimes just get crap and it's a good deal. These are from Groupon. I got like 5 for $6 or something. They are not even worth that. It's like I have to try cutting thread like 5 times through it. They look really sharp, but the yarn just slips between the blades. So I do have one really cool pair. For that I have only one off, and it's sitting next to my sewing machine. And since if you have seen my previous posts, you must have seen there is a little obsession going on with the quilting these days. Oh, you have no makers before? Nice yarn. The dimensions were a little off. Yeah, so this is what I've noticed. The reason why I have this sheet out here with samples of all these yarns is because these are all sock yarns, but all of them take a different setting on the machine. Every yarn has a different gauge, like they might call it fingering and all of that. And the one thing I've noticed with after I've been using the machine, because the machine is very consistent as far as tension is concerned, it's not like your hands, right? Even if it's the same yarn, especially in self-striping yarn, I've noticed it's the same yarn, you're doing self-striping, the gauge when there was this particular yarn, whenever it reached the red section of the yarn, I had to slow down my cranking a lot more, because otherwise the stitches would slip off. So the gauge of the red part of that yarn was different than the rest of the yarn. So the machine will pick up on the very slightest change and throw you off. So yeah, that's the reason why people say gauge stuff. For socks, it really doesn't matter. And yeah, that's why I make the card, because every time figuring out what setting I need to put it in is time consuming. But I'm kind of obsessive about such things. I like to have data with me when I can. And again, those settings are going to be different from everyone else's. Yes, and some dyes, they do more different things to the yarn than the others. Yes, I'm sure. And like it was pretty clear, like that yarn had just white, red, a black, a gray. So for all the other colors, it was just knitting like at the speed I'm doing. But if I went at the same speed whenever there was a red section, the stitches would land up being too tight and they would just slip off the needles. So I had to go very slowly whenever it reached the red section, like the 10 rows of red, and then I would switch back to my regular cranking. So like you wouldn't be able to tell once the socks are done, but the machine just picked up on, hey, something is, did you pass a different yarn? Alright, so we got that. Dealing with bad snips. That worked in one try, that was good. And then we are going to take our yarn, which has some gold sparkle in it, our Halloween yarn. And this too, I think I'm going to keep it at the same setting. I might have to go to 4.5 for this, I have a feeling. Sparkle can be a little tricky. And I think I'm good. And when it is a variegated yarn like this, I don't want to change my tension even the slightest bit during the thing, because it's going to pool in one way or the other. Either it's going to stripe pool or just like pool making patches of colors. If I change my tension like in the middle of the sock, it's going to be a totally different color scheme going on. So I have to make sure that whatever tension I'm knitting at is the tension I want the entire sock to be. Uh, the one yarn that gave me a lot of trouble, not a lot of trouble, means it is like it's the way it's dyed, right? Yeah, it interrupts the pool, but then the thing is, it's like it changes, like it just becomes a different pool pattern. So then it's like half the sock would be one pool pattern and then it just becomes a different pool pattern. So it might break the pool, but it's still kind of pooling because, it's dyed in that regular way. So I think I'm going to stick with this setting and do the whole sock. And I can already see black, white patches. So it's going to do the spiral thing on it. Hopefully it'll be fine with the end user. Yeah, it's not something I can control. Yeah, I can change the tension to make it a pool a certain way, but it will pool in some way or the other. Sometimes it makes very cool stripes, so this one I think is going to go spiral. You can kind of see the spirals going. So this is going to be fun Halloween sock for sure. See, and you can see the stitches are rising already. Now I cannot change the tension because my pooling will change. So I'm just going to go slow. So the one yarn I was saying, I had a lot of trouble with pooling sequences, even though I kept the same tension throughout the yarn, and the pooling sequence just kept changing in very weird ways. Was one of my favorite yarns as far as the intensity of color goes is Wool Miser. And I love the colors they do, I love the saturation and everything, but the pool sequence in it was like you couldn't get two matching socks out of it. But I would do some other project. I wouldn't do socks with their yarn. Of course, it's very fascinating to see it in high speed, right? What the BPMs are doing exactly. So don't blame your knitting if your patterns are pooling or anything. It's just the nature of variegated yarns. Sometimes like variegated yarns from Schmutzerella yarn. Actually, the next one is going to be one of her yarns, and that's this one. And I have realized her variegated yarns pool in very interesting stripes. I'm not sure about that particular one, but the way she dyes, they almost create that self-striping look, which is pretty neat. Kind of like what this is doing. This is doing more of a spiral. That also does a little bit of a spiral, but it looks more like self-striping. But it's not a self-striping yarn as such. It is a variegated yarn. You know, people develop their dye techniques to make stuff work. I'm really liking the spiral which is created in this yarn. So I just hope the person who gave me this yarn to crank likes that spiral pattern. Not many people like it. If I touch that knob even slightly, it's going to change the whole pooling sequence. So Samantha Hardman at Whimsical Wool Yarn Company, complete series of planned pooling yarns for hats can be used for socks. Okay, so she designed them for hats. Assways? I like that, smart ass and dumbass. Oh, I have to look her up. Whimsical Wool Yarn Company. I don't. The name sounds familiar. I might have used her yarn at some point. You know, there is one way to find out. I have a list of all the yarns I've cranked on this thing. Means I think I might have, just knit with that yarn by hand too. But the label, I can almost see the label in my head. No, I don't have it on the sock machine. Okay. Why it's riding up is because the weight has almost reached the bottom. Okay, can you see this? Isn't that cool? So it's doing like a spiral, but like a very precise spiral, which is nice. So Pixie Toes, okay, merino nylon blend, yeah. That 75-25 is a very popular sock yarn blend. What I like is using variegated yarns when you knit them flat rather than, knitting in the round creates these kinds of pools and spirals and stuff. But knitting them flat can create very cool, like almost, checkered patterns which look like what do you call it, intarsia kind of patterns. There is Laura Bryan's book. I'm forgetting the title of the book, which talks about, how you can make full use of the variegated yarns to get planned pooling. And it talks about, you can pick up any variegated yarn and figure out how many stitches you need to cast on based on your stitch size in order to get like a checkered pattern in it. Very fascinating book. And I have used those variegated yarns and that method to knit on my flatbed knitting machine, because in that I can knit flat and you can get some really, really nice patterning, using variegated yarns. I can't go very fast. You can see the stitches rise up, they don't fall immediately. And I tightened my gauge slightly when I started. I shouldn't have. I should have just left it where it was. But it's still fine. Yes, color patterning with hand-dyed yarns. That's the book. Yes, Jamie, isn't this fun? It's by Gnome Acres. Can you see that on the camera? Uh, Gnome made and nerd flavored, and the colorway is called Smell My Feet. Very Halloweeny. So, people who are watching and want to know more about sock knitting machines, go to Sock TV, Jamie Mayfield, and I have learned so much from her videos. And I am coming back onto doing working on the sock machine after revising through some of her videos to make sure I'm doing things the right way. But I'm just making tubes, so I'm fine. But I know when I start doing the heels, cuffs, and toes, I need to look back on all her videos. So she's on YouTube, but she has a subscription too on Sock TV. So my stitches sure are rising, and I don't like it, but I cannot change the tension now. It'll change the pull pattern, and I love this pull pattern the way it is. Cannot have two different socks. So I'll just go slow. So what? It's been an hour, and I'm almost done with three sock tubes, with a lot of chatting. So it's a lot faster than knitting by hand. I would say that. So, come holiday time, the holiday pressure of making socks for everyone, this helps. Hey Donna, oh, it was fun chatting with you too. You're working on world building? What's world building? This will make such cool socks. They almost look like tiger stripes. Aren't that cool? So Halloween. But I will admit to something. I'm not a big Halloween person. I said that out loud on TV. So. Oh, Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, good. Anyway, have fun. So see, something has changed in the way the yarn was dyed or something. Because the pool pattern has changed. It's become wider suddenly in a small section. I don't know why it happens. Because variegated yarns are not very precisely dyed because they are in a loop. There can be a bigger section and a smaller section which can just throw off the color just a little bit, and it just did it for a few of those rows, and now it's back to its original striping pattern, and I didn't change any tension or anything on this machine. So you are witness. Variegated yarns just give a lot of surprises. So, almost to the end. There. That's good. Okay. There we go. Don't need that. And this we just pass down here. Pass our waste yarn for a couple of rows. Now let's move our weight up. The next yarn is from Mozzarella yarn. That's Nancy, who has been my good quarantine buddy. We chat almost every other day, and we do video chats, watching shows, killing time. Okay, and this, I like this yarn base of hers. It's a 2-ply yarn, but it's a nice tightly spun sock yarn, and her colorways are really cool. But what's really fun are the names of her yarn. And this one is called Sandy Claus, and that's her business. Schwitzerella yarn. So there you go. So we're going to be, this is more Christmassy because it's Sandy Claus. So I highly recommend you go to her website, schmozzarillayarns.com. Don't ask me to spell that. I can show you the label again. I should ask her to come in and put a link to her shop. Hold on, I'll just text her real quick. Maybe she'll join. See, okay, so this is something I have to admit. uh, not being born here and being very familiar with American culture, many things, half the things I don't get. Okay. And Nancy is very well known for the names of her yarns, and they are all very current, based on movies or character names, or a particular dialogue in a movie, just something very popular about media in one way or the other. And some of them I get because I know those movies and stuff, but because I'm not familiar with a lot of them, I don't get them, but they're still pretty hilarious, and I can totally connect with the name of the yarn and the colorway she's dyed. Like this, it says Sandy Claus. I didn't know the reference, but thanks for letting me know. So all her yarns have these fun names to them. So there we got a ravel cord in, and I'm going to knit a few more rows of waste yarn. Doesn't matter if I've done too many or too less. 72 stitch. Schmutzerella yarn goes on 4.5s. Yeah, I have knit a lot of her yarn, so I know the exact settings for a yarn. This sheet helps. And last year, was it last year? Oh god, everything feels like ages ago. Nancy and I had, so Nancy is the owner of Schmutzerella yarn, the dyer behind it. We both had collaborated on colorway. I made a mug in the colorway, and she dyed yarn in that colorway, which was called Electric Rain. And we had a limited quantity, and people could get sock yarn or they could get tubes. I would knit tubes for them. It helped me pay off the machine. Honestly, that was my main incentive. I'm like, I need to pay this machine, let's collaborate on something. And so I have knit with her yarn a lot. So we'll see what kind of pooling this does. Her yarn usually does some pretty cool, interesting effects. Almost like self-striping yarn, but not exactly. Second right. I'm liking this. So it's doing a very subtle stripe. You can kind of see the band of red and the pinkish and the gray. It's not a gray, is it a gray? Yes, it is a gray. But so her yarns kind of stripes, but in very cool ways. So I wouldn't even call it pooling. I think it's more like a striping effect. This is so cool. reach the bottom. So after this, I'm going to get all the socks off the machine, and I can show you all of them. Whoever has been watching and is curious to see what the socks look like. And this one has the most coolest striping effect. I knew Nancy's yarn does that. So let me knit some more, and you will be able to see what it looks like. Nancy message me. Nancy is cooking soup right now, so she cannot join us, but she would tell you the more detailed story as to why her yarn is called Sandy Claus, and I'm pretty sure, Donna, that's the reason why. But like I told you, I am not very aware of it. This is what happens when the cone is not wound up properly. This is my fault. And it just went under the cone, and that's when it does that. But I caught it, so it won't be an issue. But I need to be careful for the next few rows. Usually I can tell from the bottom of the cone whether that's going to happen, and I had not noticed that, but sometimes while winding, if even one bit of yarn goes under the cone out there, it's going to grab like that and just screw up. So that's why I said winding the yarn on the cone is the most time consuming and difficult part for me than anything else when it comes to making these tubes. And at the same time, I don't want people to send me yarn in cakes. I prefer getting it from, getting the yarn in a hank and then winding it myself on the cone, because it needs to be wound anyway. It's very interesting pulling, and I'm going to just pull it out after I'm done, and you can see it looks like self-striping yarn with some very cool effects thrown in between. it's a very subtle pattern. Let me see if I can show you even right now, um, while this is going on. But like, look at the striping pattern on that. So you can see there are bands. So it is a spiral, like you said, but it's like a very particular kind of spiral with very interesting stuff in between. It's not just, you know, solid stuff happening. Like, it's not like the Halloweeny one, which also is cool, but it's a lot of fun. I want to knit a sweater with her yarn, and I want to do it on a flatbed knitting machine. Because I think her yarn will make some very cool, you know, patterns on the flatbed. And if nothing at all, you should just go to her website. I should probably type in here. Let me see if I can actually, if I have the ability to type and send you the link. CH Schmutzerella yarns.com. There it is. So check out the names of her sock colorways. That itself is pretty fun. Oh, it didn't post on Facebook? Yeah, it does crazy things like that. Let me see if I have to do it through the phone. Yep, that's the one. You got it, Donna. So that's her dude based, which I really like. Yeah, now I typed it directly on my Facebook page rather than using my OBS software, because my OBS posted it on Twitch and YouTube but did not post it on Facebook. Oh, it's been such a learning curve with these softwares. to an end. That is good. We just finished too. So, okay, so that yarn is not called oops. I checked with her. It's called ouch. Because it looks like a bruise. Correct me if I'm wrong, because that's what I showed her the picture and she really liked the shawl and all, and she like, the colorway is not oops, it is ouch. And the reason is because it looks like a bruise. Hey, how did I get on my camera again? Oh, you can see me now. Here we go. I made a short appearance. I didn't intend to. But oh well, you can see I was completely dressed, so it's fine. So I'm just gonna put some waist yarn on this. And that'll be the last tube for today. There we go. So now I'm going to remove the weight and pulling on the sock, get all out, and thus all my socks have been turned into tubes. So check out the striping pattern on this. So see, it's spiral, but the in-between lines, I really like how a yarn does that. So that was that one. This was the yarn by Nomad and Nerd Flavor, the Halloween colorway called Smell My Feet. The next one, the University of Washington colorways. It's purple. It's not showing purple. I know it's showing blue, but it's purple. Believe me. That was by Berry Colorful Yarnings. That's the label. If you can see the label, can you see the label? Too much light. And this is Trekking Yarn, which made a very nice, gradient, almost striping gradient kind of yarn. So they'll make nice socks too. You wrote it right on Ravelry. It is ouch, right? Yeah, I know. So these 4 are done. These are going to get shipped out. Actually, she's local, the person who ordered these, so she's going to come home and pick them up. You can drop off your sock yarn if you want. If you're local, contactless drop off. She just dropped them by the front door and messaged me. She's like, I've left them by your front door. So that's that. So anyway, these are done. Thank you for joining me. It's been an hour and a half. We did 4 socks, lots of chatting. It was fun. Tomorrow, I'm going to try to find time, but I'm going to be knitting some of white birch self-striping yarn, and I have 4 skeins of those to do, and they're all self-striping with some stunning colors. Look at the autumnal colors on this one. So this, it doesn't look like much in a cone, but believe me, it's going to be a lot of fun. Like, look at this. And these are all self-striping with very precise color patterns in it. And then there is a purple, which will probably show blue. Yeah, it's showing blue, but it's only purple. There is absolutely no blue in this yarn. And then there is this green and gray, again self-striping. So these I plan to do tomorrow. And I do have 2 more socks. One is Magpie and one is another Seahawks colorway, more Washington sport team related stuff. So I have 6 more cones to do, but these are going to be done on a 64 stitch. Those others are going to be done on a 72 stitch. So these are all for orders for people who want to get socks done before the holidays without the stress of hand knitting the entire sock. So if you're interested, let me know. You know where to find me, creativewithclay.com. So anyway, thank you so much, Donna. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, everyone else who joined in. I will see you all later. Bye.